Let's look at life goals. I want you to have your clients think about life goals in certain areas. Now, before we get into that, let's talk about what life goals are. Life goals are things that you want your clients to work on. So you want to get them focused on the fact that you are there to help them. It's not as if you're just hanging out with them. It's not as if they just hired you as a friend or anything like that. You are there to help them work on certain things. And interestingly enough, when you work with someone, it's not as if you're just going to work on finances. Let's say they've hired you to work on finances. Well, what you're going to find is that finances actually lend themselves nicely to other areas of their lives. When they get their finances in order, suddenly they start showing up on time for things, and suddenly their relationships work more smoothly, because it's not just about what you're working on. It's about getting them to rebuild from the ground up, to restructure, to start focusing on the important things. Many times in my hypnotherapy office, when I work with someone on weight loss, for example, well, suddenly they get new distinctions. So it's not just as if they're losing weight. They also feel empowered. They also start working on other areas of their lives besides just weight loss. So everything that you do with someone is going to have a positive, powerful, productive effect on a number of areas of their lives. So keep this in mind as you work on life goals, that even though it may feel like you're just working on one thing, one area, that your focus is very narrow, they're going to be able to take those skills and use them in other areas of their lives, and they're going to be able to start moving forward in those areas. So things are going to start happening, things that you never planned on, good things, wonderful, positive, productive things. You're going to be working on one area of their lives, and suddenly they're going to come to you and say, I was blocked in this, I was looking at things as obstacles. Now I found a way through them. And you hadn't even worked on that area at all. What happens is that they carry the skills over. So you want to always keep that in mind. The first area that I want you to start working on with your clients is health. Now, it doesn't have to be in this order. When I say first, this is just the first one that I'm going to talk about. But one of the areas that you're going to work with them on is health. When they have a lack of structure and they just hire you as a life coach, and they say something to the effect of, I don't really know what a life coach is. Everyone else has one. I thought I would hire one. Let's see what happens. Let's give this a shot. I'm paying you money. What can you do for me? Well, that's a wonderful opportunity for you, but it can also be a little daunting because suddenly everything falls on you. There's no pattern. There's no blueprint. There's nothing that's really guiding your actions other than you and your common sense and your knowledge of life coaching. So when that happens, one of the great areas to work on is health. Now, sometimes you'll be hired specifically to work on that. Remember, you don't have to be the health expert. You don't have to be a cardiologist to help someone start running every day. You just have to be a motivator, someone who gets them to do something. So keep in mind that although in many cases you're going to feel, trust me when I say this, you're going to feel that you're not equipped to work on that area, but you are. You don't have to be an expert in health, for example, to help someone work on their health. You can get advice from experts and you can bring that in. Let's say, for example, they do hire you to help them work on their health and they really want you to focus on that heavily. Well, now it's not just something that you're going to throw out there and say, okay, this week let's work on health. It's going to be the main focus, and you better have some information to bring to the table. This is where the initial consultation really pays off. You are taking notes, you're finding out what they want you to do so that by the time you go in there for the first session with them, you have something going on. You have a game plan, or at least a proposal for them for what you can do. This week, I think you should start doing this. Next week, that. We're going to change the way you're eating this and that and so forth. And eventually what happens is that things develop. I want you to always keep in mind that despite your best intentions and the best plans you make, life is going to happen. They're going to have situations come up. They're going to have to deal with the kids, or there's going to be an illness in the family, or they're not going to be able to see you this week, or something like that. Something's going to happen. So always keep yourself flexible. Rather than having this plan that you set up and we must follow the plan, keep in mind that life happens and you have to plan around that. You have to stay flexible. But one of the key areas you'll be working on is health. Also, as I've mentioned many times in this program, career. Sometimes CEOs of a company will hire you to work with either them or someone beneath them in their company to get them up to par. They're not performing as well as they could. So your job is to go in there and work with Joe, who is not doing so well. Maybe he used to do well, but he's not doing so well right now. He needs a little kick in the pants. He needs someone to get him doing what he already knows how to do. Or you could be hired by someone individually, just someone who wants to jumpstart their career. Maybe they don't currently have a career, and you've just been hired by someone who wants to start a career. Maybe they just got out of law school, and they realize they need a life coach to get to the next level. Because although they have education and perhaps they've passed the bar already, they don't have a job. They don't have a business. They don't have anything. They don't have any clients. They don't have any income. They've got a lot of student debt. And your job in that particular case would be to help them get everything together, to help them get organized. So you never know at what point you're going to come into a person's life. You never know. And you also never know what you're going to face. You need to be one of the most versatile people in the world. You have to be ready for anything. And I suggest when you're initially starting out as a life coach that you accept everyone. Someone wants to work with you, you say fine. It sounds a little daunting. Maybe they want to train so they can climb Mount Everest. Who knows? You may look at that and say, are you kidding me? Mount Everest? I've never climbed anything in my life. I don't know anything about it. That sounds dangerous. No thanks. But you would be passing up a wonderful opportunity because, if nothing else, people who are that ambitious are going to have other friends who are that ambitious, and they're going to help you get more clients and more powerful clients, clients with money, clients who are able to afford your services. So that's going to be wonderful. You're also going to learn a lot. You're going to learn to think on your feet. You're going to go from knowing nothing about climbing Mount Everest to knowing everything you can in not much time at all. Because I guarantee you, after the first consultation, you will stay up most of the night looking up things on the internet about climbing Mount Everest and what it takes to prepare, and watching YouTube videos about how people prepare, asking around, trying to find books, ordering books from Amazon or wherever you get them, and you are going to be a semi-expert in a very short period of time. That's the way you can handle situations like this. So I suggest that when you do have something come up, if it's in career or anything else, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and start preparing. So one of the life goals people will want to work on is their career. What about growth? Now, this is kind of general, isn't it? When I say growth, you may think, well, what is growth? Well, what I'm talking about here is just personal development in general. Most of the time, when you work with a client in life coaching, that's really what they want. And this is the one category that's the underpinning of everything else. If you want to look at one category that's a catch-all, one category that benefits every other category, it would be growth, because it's so general. It can be applied to everything we've talked about so far, health and career, and you realize that when you help someone grow, you're helping them develop as an individual. You're not giving them anything that they didn't already have necessarily. However, you're helping to bring that out from them. You're helping to bring out the best part of them so that they can develop it. Sometimes what's happened when you show up on the scene is that they've lost focus. Perhaps they used to think they were great. They used to think they were someone, something, but that's really gone by the wayside. They don't think about that anymore. They don't think in those terms about themselves anymore. So your job is to get them focused on that. So before you even begin with growth, you have to first of all get them believing in themselves. Before they can become something or regain what they had, they have to once again believe in themselves. And once they do, then they can start moving forward. Then they can take the other steps. Think about a tree. A tree doesn't just happen. It doesn't go from a seed to a tree. It goes from a seed to a plant. Plant's very delicate, very fragile. It can be stomped out or eaten by something. You never know. And then it becomes a small tree that's reasonably sizable, and then becomes a very large tree, giving shade to animals and just being really majestic. That takes time. Growth takes time. And you never know at what point you're going to step into a person's life. Unlike trees, we can kind of shrink back over time. We can grow into that majestic tree, and then we can lose sight of that, and we can shrink back into the little plant that once again needs to be nurtured. So growth is a very interesting catch-all area, but realize that most of the time, this is exactly what you'll be focusing on, whether it's financial growth or growth in a career or growth in self-esteem or working with actors to help them grow in their skills. Whatever it is, growth really defines everything that you will bring to the table as a life coach. When we talk about life goals and getting your client focused on them and thinking about them, really growth is the number one goal because it defines everything else. Everything else is sort of under the umbrella. So with it, they can go to the moon. Without it, it may even be difficult for them to get out of bed in the morning because they don't have that belief in themselves. So work on growth always. What about money? Isn't money an interesting thing? Now, I tend to look at money as an easy category to work on. Why is that? Because it's kind of like weight loss or smoking. It's quantifiable. Someone's either losing weight or gaining weight, and you can put them on a scale and find out exactly how much they weigh. Someone's either smoking or not smoking. It's a yes or no. That's the easiest one of all to work on because you can see the results. Now, I'm not saying that it's necessarily really easy to stop smoking or really easy to lose weight for everyone, because some people have such a challenge built up in their minds, they make it so difficult for themselves that it can be really difficult for them because they've made it that way. Stopping smoking is easy. You just stop smoking. But if a smoker has it in their mind that they're a smoker, that can be a challenge for them. Losing weight is easy. You just burn more than you eat. Very simple formula. However, what if somebody has it in their mind that they're overweight, that they're supposed to be overweight, that their destiny is to be overweight somehow? Yes, people do get that in their minds. Well, it's the same with money. People get in their minds what they're worth, what they should be able to make. They think they're worth a certain amount, whether it's $25,000 a year, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, whatever it is. They tend to put a limit on what they think they are worth. And what happens? They live up to that. And what else happens? They have a collection of friends who are doing exactly the same. What happens there? Well, they all kind of get together and they make each other feel good. Okay, we're doing this. This is what we're worthy of. They also look to each other for social validation. Okay, this is what I'm making because Joe and Sally are making that. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to make. I'm in the ballpark, not too low, not too high. That's good. But what actually happens? People limit themselves. One of your jobs as a life coach is going to be to get your client to focus on money. Now, interestingly enough, a focus on money isn't necessarily a focus on money. And what I mean by that is what I talked about before. Sometimes when you focus on other things, these areas clear up by themselves. If you get your client believing that they are worthy, that they're wonderful, that they're productive, that they deserve to have something, that they deserve to have abundance from the universe, well, you don't have to show them a bank statement and say, get more. You don't have to show them numbers and say, let's increase this number. They start believing in themselves. That number increases automatically. So many times, an indirect approach to making money leads to making more money. In fact, people who focus too much on money tend to kind of work against themselves. They get caught up in that. Got to get money, got to get money, got to get money. What happens? They get all this anxiety about money. Everything becomes about money. Have you noticed that people without a lot of money tend to focus on money more than people who do have a reasonable amount? You notice that? They always want to win the lottery and are always talking about bills and so forth. Now, why is that? Well, it's because money is a daunting thing to them. It's something that they're striving for that's really not quite tangible all the time. So there's this extreme focus on it. When you get their focus off of that and get them focused on their value that they bring to the world and get them looking at productive ways that they can bring more value and get compensated for it, then the whole money issue clears itself up. So many times when you focus on the goal of money, you're really not focusing on that at all. And I want you to keep that in mind. Relationships. Here's another area that's a lot like money. Have you ever noticed when someone focuses and they think, I've got to get a relationship, got to get a relationship, got to get a relationship? What do? Well, they go on a date and they mess it up. They go out with someone and it doesn't quite work out. And why is that? Why is that happening? It's because they're undoing it. They're so focused on it rather than letting it flow, rather than letting the universe flow and take care of them. They're really, really focused on it. And it's interesting how people can be really good with money and really bad with relationships. I use the words good and bad, but I don't mean any judgment by that. You know what I mean. Effective and ineffective. Interestingly enough, people who have tremendous skill in some areas, let's say financial areas, they may not have any skill whatsoever in relationships. Now that's fascinating, isn't it? Or it could be vice versa. You would think that once everyone has something together, it carries over. I mean, didn't I say that these areas tend to carry over to each other? Not all the time. This doesn't always happen. It's not guaranteed. And I'm sure you've seen this. I'm sure you've seen people who are great with money, but everything else isn't working, or they're great with relationships, but they don't have any money, or maybe they're not so good with anything, or maybe they're good at everything. There are, of course, those people too. That's where you want your client to end up, good with everything. So you want them focused on these goals, either directly or indirectly. So far, we have health, career, growth, money, and relationships. You want to get them to realize the importance of these things, not to have them over-focused to the point of getting nervous and having more anxiety about it, pointing out, hey, you're really not good with money, or hey, you're not really good with your health. Why don't you focus on that? Or hey, your career's not going so well. Why don't you focus on that? Rather than saying like that, I want you to just work it into the plan. You don't even have to present them with this list if you don't want to. You don't have to say, here's what we're going to work on. But make sure at least that it's represented in the plan that you have for them. Make sure that you are working on these things with them. And that's going to be of tremendous advantage to them. So I want you to have your clients make 1, 5, 10, and 20-year goals in relation to each of the life goal areas. Okay, so when you have them do this, you really have them focus on what's going on. Now, we talked about these plans. We talked about the 1, 5, 10, and 20-year plans. Now, when you start getting them focused on doing that in relation to these goals, what you're going to realize is that they become very focused on what's going on, very aware of what's going on. They start to realize, wait a minute, what I'm doing now may not actually contribute to the wealth that I want to have 5 years from now. So with some of your clients, you're going to just list the goals and say, write down what's going to happen to you 1, 5, 10, and 20 years from now in relation to these goals. Sometimes you're just going to use the goals that they have, because the goals that they have may very well correspond to these areas anyway. And sometimes with some clients, you're going to play this by ear. You're going to figure this out for yourself. But with some clients, you may not want to do that. You may just want to get their goals and see where they see themselves in the future. And for these general goals, these goals that are really top goals for many people, maybe you just want to kind of see where they're going with it. And maybe, this is going to be up to you, maybe you want to have them do this. But if you do have them go through this exercise, it's very powerful, very powerful. And I say maybe because some of your clients, as I've said, are just going to say, hey, come in here, here's what you're doing. I don't care about your plan, here's what we're working on. Health is what I'm working on. I don't want to hear about finance, relationship, I just want to hear about health. So you may have clients like that. But when you have more flexible clients, getting them to write it down and take a look at it is really powerful, because they start to get distinctions and they can look at it and they can chart it out. Where will I be if I continue doing what I'm doing, the way I'm doing it? Where will I be in a year? Will I be where I want to be? And really, that's the essence of working with a life coach. They want to be somewhere other than where they are. If you work with them for a year and they're in the same exact place, guess what happens at the end of that year, if not sooner? That's right. You end up looking for a job because they want to get somewhere. They want to go on a journey with you. That journey involves whatever they want it to involve. But if they leave it open, it should involve as many areas of their lives as possible. I want you to encourage them to write down their goals. Okay, so they've made their goals and write them down. Now, again, this is not with every client. Sometimes they'll just want to work on their goals. Sometimes they'll be open to your categories. Sometimes your categories will correspond with theirs. Remember, you had them write down their ideas, their goals. Sometimes these categories will be covered by that, sometimes not. So when someone's really open to this, have them do it. Have them go for it. Encourage them to write them down and keep them and frequently visualize accomplishing these goals. When they do, when they write it down and when they focus on it, what's going to happen? Well, what's going to happen is that it's in the front of their minds. They're going to be really focused on it. They're going to be brushing their teeth, and there it is on the mirror. You know how it works. They see it right in front of them. They remember, oh, wait a minute, I'm working with a life coach. I'm paying the life coach money. I'm giving him or her a fair amount of money. I probably should be doing the things that he or she tells me to do so I can get to the next level. So having goals in front of them is something that some people look at as cliche. Write your goals down, say daily affirmations and so forth. But I want to tell you it works. And I also want to tell you that not doing that causes them to lose focus very quickly. They can tend to go off into all kinds of things because what happens when your client wakes up? Same thing that happens when you wake up. Any number of things. Anything could happen. They could start wandering off down the street. They could wake up and go see a movie. They could start reading a book. They can do whatever they want. Even if they have a job, they don't have to go to it. They can do whatever they want. But having a focus, knowing what to do, knowing how that contributes to where you're going to be in the future, that's of tremendous value. Usually if someone has a job, they wake up, and if it's a day that they're going to work, they're very focused on their job. Why? Because they see how it contributes to their immediate future. They won't get yelled at. They won't get in trouble. They will get some money. They'll feel good about themselves, all kinds of payoffs. But for these things, sometimes the payoff is more vague. Sometimes it requires more discipline. Sometimes it requires having it right in front of them, plastered on their mirror when they get up, or on their dashboard when they're driving their car, or at the breakfast table when they're eating breakfast. Who knows? But having it in front of them can be very powerful, and not having it in front of them can cause them to start wandering off, doing all kinds of things. Who knows? Some of those things may be productive and contribute to their goals. Some of them may not. Some of them may be just taking them in circles. And they wonder a year from then, why am I in the same exact position? Well, because they haven't focused on their goals. So get them focused. This helps them keep the big picture in perspective. And that's really what it's all about. Life is a series of little decisions that you make all the time. You're making a decision to do this or not to do that. You make enough of them and you have a career. You make enough of them and you have a relationship. You make enough of them and you have a certain amount of money. Everything that you will accomplish in your life is a series of decisions. So it's very easy to get this myopic point of view going on where you're just seeing what you're doing next. Okay, I'm getting dressed now. I'm getting in my car. I'm going to meet with a client. I'm going home. I'm sitting down. If you get zoomed in like that, then you are going to lose sight of the big picture. If your client gets zoomed in like that, they're going to lose sight of the big picture. What happens when you lose sight of the big picture? What happens when you stop looking forward to a vacation or to the weekend? You get caught up and you can even get sad. You can get really upset about things. Oh my goodness, I have to do this? I have to do this again? I have to do more of it? I have to do another hour of it? I have to do another 3 hours of it? I get so caught up sometimes in the little picture myself that I need to zoom out. And I'm sure you do it too. Guess what? I'm sure your client does it too. Help them zoom out. And when they zoom out, what's going to happen is that they are going to get new distinctions. They're going to see, okay, wait a minute now. What I'm doing here is contributing to my long-term financial goals. What I'm doing here is contributing to my long-term relationship goals, my long-term career goals, to my long-term health goals. to my personal growth. It's contributing to every area of my life, or at least specific areas. It makes their daily drudgery into something that's beautiful because it's a puzzle piece. It's a stepping stone to a big picture, to something that they want, whether it's just working toward the weekend or a vacation or toward their 1-year goal or 5-year goal or 10 or 20-year goal. They are then part of something huge, something wonderful. And I think about employees in an organization. If they get really caught up in just going to Cubicle Land USA Incorporated, and they go there every day, and they're not seeing how this corporation is actually contributing to the world, hopefully it is. If it's not, they should probably get another job. But if it is, then they should see that, rather than just seeing that they must go to a cubicle, must answer the phone, must go home, must come back the next day, rinse and repeat, so forth and so on. That's the little picture. The big picture is this organization is a wonderful organization. It's helping the world. It's bringing, hopefully, quality products and services to the world. That's what they're part of. They can get excited about it. They can get new distinctions. That's what your clients need to do concerning their goals and their lives.